on the outside of the envelope. I witnessed that at least 3 times. And once the girl realized what the process was, she stopped mentioning it. She just knew what to do. Then there was, I did notice the Democrats that came in. They came in 2 different groups throughout the evening. There was 2 groups, and they weren't there to watch the process. They were there to watch us. They were standing behind me. I was 6 feet away from the table. They were behind me. They weren't watching what was going on. And at one point, I had 2 girls with their phones up, like they were recording me. I offered them my notes. I said, this is what I've observed. This is what they're doing. They're doing everything, you know, they're catching these things. There were also, I observed torn, stained, any ballots that needed to be duplicated. They were not duplicated. The supervisor asked her supervisor, which is the people with the embroidered shirts, she asked them what they should do, and that supervisor told her to run them through the tabulator and only duplicate them if it was rejected. So anything that had a smudge, a stain, a tear, and I did witness a few of them. At some point, they stopped telling the supervisor that there was an issue with a ballot because they knew they were going to run it through anyway. Didn't matter.
Thank you. So earlier in your testimony, you mentioned running the ballots through the machine and then tearing the numbers off. Were they tabulating them first and then removing the number?
No. So the first person would scan it into the e-poll book. And then he would give it to the second person. The second person was supposed to take out the ballot because the first person never saw the ballot.
Right. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. That's when you said scanned the ballot in. I assumed you were talking about putting it in the tabulator. I understand now what you're referencing. Okay. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any other questions from members? Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, I have Kurt Hausauer, followed by Timothy Parker, and followed by Bill Schmidt. Is Kurt here? Kurt? Is Timothy here? Timothy Parker? Timothy Parker? And I'm putting these back into the pile. So I mean, if they miss their time now, they'll get another chance. Bill Schmidt. Is Bill Schmidt here? Robin Bozinski. It's a pretty similar name to a lot of the ones we have in the UP. So welcome to the Senate Oversight Committee.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I do first of all want to say that we live in a republic with a democracy. I already gave you my written testimony as
yes.
well as my affidavit.
Yes.
What I'm going to tell you just a couple things that are in my sworn statement is I was a challenger down at TCF, and I did experience a lot of things of what people are saying. There was intimidation. There was the cock blocking of us being able to see the actual process where they wanted us to stand at the corner monitor. And the one most egregious thing that I noticed was it alerted me that the table person who was in charge of our table had told seat number 5 to hang on to 9 ballots because they needed to bring them back to change some numbers on them. So I'm like, oh, wait, red flag in my head. So I thought, well, I need to go over by the scanner and see what they're doing over there. And I did. And after a little bit, and I was harassed about my mask because I could only wear it up to my nose because I need to be able to breathe. And I had ADA. And anyway, so what I had witnessed was this gentleman scanning the envelope. He raised it up, calling for the table, person in charge of our table to come. And he says, what am I supposed to do with this when the ballot number does not match in the book? And he said, well, we're just going to change it. And I said, you cannot change that. You cannot go in the poll book and change it. We need to challenge this. Well, when I did that, summing everything up, I was pulled aside about my mask. The woman and I had agreed that if you get me a shield, I will wear a shield with my mask. I'm good, you know. And I thought that was settled. And while she was talking to me, I could hear the gentleman tell the scanner guy, just scan them and run them through. It's not our job to double check the numbers like this.
1 minute.
So that was the most egregious thing that I had experienced. You'll see the rest of my thing. But days later, my neighbor was walking her dogs. And so I went over in my jammies and I talking to her. And she says, Robin, I want to tell you something. You're political, and I think I need to tell you something. So what she had told me was she works at the local nursing home. And she had gone back to work after being off all summer. And one of the RNs had told her that the activities director held a activity in the building with the seniors. And it was a mock election. It was a mock election with real ballots, and that the staff workers were helping the seniors fill these ballots out, to the point that one gentleman was writing his name as Quincy, but that wasn't his name because he had Alzheimer's. So the worker actually crossed his name out and wrote on his thing, and was told that the ballots were, in fact, mailed out. So that's a point that I think nobody knows about or has heard about. I've asked them to come and testify, but they said that they're worried about their jobs.
And we'll need, if that issue is going to be looked into, we'll need something, your testimony would constitute hearsay.
I actually have my stuff in writing, and I've given you all and I've given the facility's name, address, and all that information to you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any other members have questions?
I do want to remind you, though, that your job is to thoroughly, whether you're Democrat or Republican, we have an ethical, moral, civic duty to make sure that this election is truly an legal process. And to me, it seemed like a lot of infringements and a lot of infractions, a lot of illegal behavior towards people trying to do their legal jobs were in fact violated.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony. I need to apologize for Senator Tice, who had to step out for another committee, and we'll come back as soon as she can. And
so one thing I do want to tell you about.
Senator Santana does too, so thank you. We'll keep rolling.
What I want to tell you about is one of the envelopes that came through was the tab was tacked behind the envelope like this, and the ballot was showing like this, and I said, you can't process that. That is not a legal sealed envelope, and I got fought about that.
Were you successful or unsuccessful in challenging that?
Every time I challenged them, which was about 6 times, at seat number 1's thing, they just wanted to put a Post-it on it, and we'll look back at it later. It's not our job to worry about that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute here. And then the gentleman was opening the envelopes, he hit the ballot. Now remember, we do not know if these are Democratic or Republican votes. We just know that we're looking at an envelope that is legal or legally sealed or not sealed. And whenever I tried to challenge it, he put a Post-it on, orange one.
Okay, thank you.
So, just to tell you. Thank you for having me.
Next, we have a card for Bill Schmidt, followed by Matthew Shepard, followed by Maria Menzel-Brown. Mr. Schmidt, welcome to the Senate Oversight Committee, sir.
Thank you, Senator Broom.
You have
all the senators.
You have 3 minutes.
My name is Bill Schmidt. I'm a registered voter here in the state, and I was at the TCF Center. There was a lot of confusion. You've heard a lot of testimony about the confusion. And I have to say probably a good part of that confusion is really at your doorstep. And by that being leading up to this election, we knew that there were going to be problems. And Ruth Johnson begged you guys to give the county clerks, city clerks, more time. You didn't. That's a huge chunk of this. Because anytime when there is confusion, there's always doubt. And that's what we're facing now. Likewise, there was a lot of ignorance in the room. Ignorance as to what constitutes a legitimate ballot. What is a signature supposed to be all about? How the entire process goes by. If you're predisposed to see fraud, you will see fraud in just simple mistakes. Mary Smith and Fred Jackson live at the same address. They fill out their ballots. They put them in separate envelopes, the incorrect envelopes. So you have the mismatched ballot with the number, and all this is readily explainable. Unless you want to see fraud, then these are illegal ballots. So part of this problem is just human error. Part of the problem is the folks just didn't have enough time. Part of the problem is a scourge pandemic. From
1 minute.
From my point of view, I saw a lot of poll workers work really hard. And I think there were some hard feelings on part of many of the challengers. There was a lot of sharp elbows, and people's got their feelings hurt. And I think that's what we're seeing here today. Hurt feelings. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Do you were in the room, I believe, a little while ago when we had a gentleman testify about how he was a poll worker and had received training, and in that training there was some instructions on making it difficult for poll challengers. Were you in the room for that part of the testimony?
I was over in the,
in another room?
Yeah.
Could you hear it, or?
yeah, I did.
Okay, so in his testimony, he said, there was these instructions during the training, there was a lawsuit, there was instructions to the Secretary of State to not do those things, and yet that message didn't seem to be delivered. Would you agree with that as being part of the confusion?
I would say that again gets back to the fact that this was a rush process. Mm-hmm. Right. Which again gets back to the, how much time did you guys allow the clerks to do their job?
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, there's always a reason for a problem.
Were you a poll challenger, a watcher, a worker? I don't remember, I'm sorry.
I'm a lifelong Republican.
Okay.
Until this election.
Okay. But did you have I just wondered if you had a title. You said you were at TCF.
I was an election challenger, yeah.
A challenger, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, what I saw was, it was disturbing. And I could see how people could be, you go in a very large room. It's really hot. I had a little thermometer with me to check my temperature through the course of the day. It was 85 degrees in there. It was really warm. There were too many people. People are shouting. People are yelling. There's the sharp elbows thing. You got folks that are upset with just having to be there. And because they're untrained, and there's that ignorance factor, right? Ignorance isn't the same as stupidity. It's just not knowing something. There's many things that you're ignorant about, probably heart surgery, right? How to fix a carburetor, brake lining, right? There's 1,000 and million things that we're just simply ignorant about. And there was a large Facebook and other social media, come on down, we need you. So you got a lot of people who are just completely untrained, had never done it before, and they're told, look out for fraud. At every single rally the president had, he said, this election was going to be filled with fraud. Tweets galore, same thing. This election is a fraud.
Sir, were you working during the shift when the ballots came in late in the morning?
I arrived at 5:55 on, it's the 4th, the day after the election.
5:55 in the morning.
And then I left at 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Was that Wednesday?
So according to past testimony, that was the time of the most tension, is when you were there then?
I was there all day. I was there for 16 hours. I was working another poll site on election day.
Okay.
So my day was, election day was busy. And then, so.
Senator McDonald, did you have a question? No? Senator Irwin? No? Thank you very much for your testimony, sir.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this.
Next, I have Matthew Shepard, followed by Maria Menzel-Brown, and then Polly McNichol. Mr. Shepard,
Good afternoon.
welcome to the Senate
Close
Oversight
to this
Committee.
good afternoon evening.
Not yet.
A constituent of yours from Schoolcraft County ran for county sheriff up there, and he witnessed some issues of concern regarding the county clerk not allowing individuals to question polling and what have you. That testimony has been submitted to your clerk. I also submitted my testimony of my area, and I'll read it out just real quick. Election integrity is the utmost importance to preserving our freedom through what was written by our nation's framers in the Foundation of Liberty through one of the greatest documents ever written, the U.S. Constitution. On Monday, November 23rd, 2020, I attended a Stop the Steal U.S. rally in Lansing, Michigan. Liberals expect us to respect the vote, as one of their signs said, as certified by corrupt government officials. 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the board of canvassers. 3-0 certified with 1 abstention, declaring Biden successful in this election. They should respect the truth. The truth is Biden and his co-conspirators, i.e. Michigan's executive branch, corrupt politicians, Governor Whitmer, Attorney General Nessel, and Secretary of State Benson, definitely stole this election in 2020, and most likely in 2018 with Dominion ballot machines. I would also speculate the Democrats did the same in 2008 and 2012 for Obama's reign of destruction in America. Biden's supporters also had signs made up, quote, "Follow the law," and I responded to them, "Follow the Constitution, not unconstitutional mandates made by executive orders from tyrannical governors throughout this nation." Another sign said, "BOC, do your job," which I responded, "Yes, the Board of Canvassers should do their job and verify the votes, not just certify the votes blindly."
One minute.
With all these signs, I imitated Speaker of the House Pelosi tearing up the Trump sign, or State of the Union address, by tearing up their ignorant signs. I found it rather peculiar whenever I visited another neighboring communities, absentee ballots for those who voting in person, for those who feared voting in person with all the fear-mongering in this nation, along with all of our active duty military personnel absentee ballots being handled behind closed doors by election polling workers. When I inquired as to why, I was told that was the way they decided to do things. Sadly, the GOP has allowed the past 2 elections to be stolen, and top Michigan legislature leaders, Speaker of the House Lee Chatfield, Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, continue to pander to the tyrannical governance. Respectfully, Matthew Shepard, co-chair of Constitution Party Midwest Region and second vice chair for State Taxpayers Party of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, were you, and forgive me if you mentioned this at the beginning, were you at TCF on Election Day?
Not
or
TCF,
the day after?
just
Okay.
my local areas.
You were a poll watcher or worker at another?
I wasn't a poll watcher. I was just constitutional advising.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Parker, who I called earlier, has come. So if, Mr. Parker, are you, please come ahead. I know it's logistically complicated with in multiple rooms and social distancing, so try to make some allowances.
Yeah, and they said they were gonna come get us when
Yeah,
I was gonna be
I-
called, so we got over here.
Well, and we had a bunch of people who didn't show up, and then I had to read names faster, and so there was a little confusion there. So thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I did, my son did get the call, in the morning. He called me about a minute after I got out of bed. He said, Dad, they need, poll watchers, challengers down at Coble Hall. He said, can you give me any information? So I made some frantic calls, and he went down. I had wanted to go down previous. My wife, you see some of the physical conditions I have, said, no way you're going down there. But I came upstairs, said, hon, I gotta go. And so I went, and we got trained down there underneath the Election Integrity Fund. And the way I understood, there were at least 135 table groups, and I'm not sure how many Election Integrity Fund people were in there, but I knew my son was in there and had to leave to go pick up his sons. And I did not believe that they were granting other Republicans to replace them. We did know that they were kicking some out, and so I knew they were short, and yet they came out and said, no, they had plenty, and they would not let us in. I was there when they were boarding up the windows. And I don't know that Charlie the Duff, he showed up and interviewed somebody, and then they started letting in about 6 at a time. I never did make it in before I was too tired. I can't stand very long, so I very often had to sit down. But it should be amazing to us that only Republican and nonpartisan workers were denied access to legally observe what is supposed to be a fair and transparent election. And it should not even be questioned when a Republican watcher or challenger is not at each table group. In the name of honesty and integrity, every Democrat involved should demand that the process stop when without Republican eyes. This lack and the cheering and the denial should be regarded as reprehensible and manifestation of fraud with no other proof required. I mean, I've heard several times today, do you have proof? It's like, man, when you're denied access, that should be sufficient proof.
1 minute.
And as legislatures, I would just encourage you guys, the least you can do is pass legislation to require maybe a revote. I heard the one gentleman not too long ago talk about the different counties. To me, what would be a few more weeks if we actually made people feel like we had a transparent and fair election? Because right now, I would agree, most people that I know do not believe at all that we're anywhere close to that. And I would just, for the sake of the republic, I'm 67 years old, and I cannot stand the idea that our country could go down under an unfair election.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any members have questions? Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Next, I have Maria Menzel-Brown, followed by Polly McNichol, followed by Marion Sheridan. Is Maria here? Maria, not in the room. Is she coming? Okay, we'll set that aside for now. Is Polly McNichol here? Welcome. After Polly, it would be Marion Sheridan, followed by Patty Kamegata. Oh, she wrote here that she was not at TCF, so put that one aside. Then it would be Joe Farkas. So Polly McNichol, welcome.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
I was at TCF Center as a poll challenger, kind of the belly of the beast. Real quick, it's a longer story than this, but what I watched, one of the incidents, Mrs. C, it was written on her shirt, brought down a box of ballots. Since they're in stacks of 50, I could estimate it was about 500 ballots. Gave this box of ballots to 3 ladies sitting at a table just off the platform. Excuse me, I'm nervous. One of the ladies, the far left one, tried to get our attention. She ended up giving us notes that were stuck on all these ballots, the sticky notes. She ended up giving us 4 of these notes. They read, received November 4th, enter as November 2nd. These 3 ladies were entering these ballots in to the verified voter system. She also got my attention, turned around, tried to get me to see her laptop monitor, which I leaned in and saw, and she wanted me to see the signature. The signature on the screen was some huge circles like that, the signature. Signature on the ballot was little tiny vertical sticks. It wasn't even in the same solar system, definitely different signatures. And this one lady that was trying to help us ended up being Jesse Jacobs, the whistleblower. Onto the tabulators, I witnessed multiple times stacks of 50 ballots being put through the tabulators multiple times. If they'd have been cleared, we would have no way of knowing, because the supervisors for the tabulators made sure that the metal boxes they put the finished ballots in were so far behind the tabulators and made us stand behind those boxes. We were at least 12 feet from them and wouldn't allow us to get any closer to them. About signing in and signing out, they had us sign in, not out, and said that we had plenty of us in there. Wednesday night, there were 10 of us in the room. I mean, us as Republican poll challengers, sorry. Yet, when I left, that were being barred from coming in. Still only 10 Republican poll challengers in the room. I witnessed the military ballots being duplicated. I just thought it was strange that only Biden's name was selected, no down ballot. And I watched multiples, I don't know how many I watched, and not one of them was for Trump. I thought that was really strange, especially being military. You must know in your heart that this election was fraudulent. There's no question of it if you really are sensible. And we all pray that you do the right thing. Pay attention to Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, and name the electors for Donald Trump. And I really appreciate you listening to me. Oh, good timing.
Perfect timing, yes. Thank you for your testimony. I know that we're planning to hear from Jesse
Great.
at a later date, so thank you for that. Do any other members have a question? All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Did Maria come into the room by any chance? No? Okay, well, we'll call on her later then, again. This one here says that she's unable to be here, but she's attached the affidavit, so. That brings us to Joe Farkas. Joe Farkas, followed by Terry Begas, followed by Vicky Collar. Is Vicky here? Why don't you come on up? If Joe Farkas or Terry Begas can hear me, come on this direction towards the room. After that'll be Nancy Tissio.
Hello, good afternoon.
Welcome to the Senate Committee, Vicky.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I started off like, my table that I had was, they didn't get very many ballots, probably 200 for the most night, so we weren't that busy. But so one thing that I had seen was the truck that came in between 3:30 and 4, and there was golf carts, and I was sitting on one of the golf carts back there because my table wasn't doing anything, and I was just sitting there, and I seen the door open. I heard a lot of commotion about what were all these ballots. And then so I walked over and I went by the door and I seen the white truck from the city, looks like, the city white pickup trucks, and they had the symbol on it. And there was one guy driving it, and he had a mask on, but looking at his eyes, I would say Asian descent. And I know he brought in at least 3 dollyfuls of the boxes, the white boxes with the paper cardboard on them, and took them over by the platform that the people were standing on. Somebody did mention, like, where did they come from? He goes, I don't know, I'm just the driver, was his statement. And that's basically, I don't know where the ballots came from. I know it was after 3 o'clock in the morning that they came, and there was quite a few of them, and there was quite a few people that seen it come in. And they looked just like the ballot boxes that were brought to the tables. And you could see the yellow envelopes of the voter bag, that were in there.
I don't want to rush you. Can I ask a question or?
Yeah, you can ask a
Okay.
question. I just,
So
nervous.
were you watching them open the boxes after they were unloaded?
no, I did not open, no, because where they took the boxes at was over, because I was back by the back door, because that's where my table was at, and I didn't want to leave that table,
Sure.
because they kept, like, every once in a while, you get a stray ballot. So I had watched him take them over by the table, and I know I counted at least 3 trips, but I don't know if he made any more, because then I went back to
Okay,
watching my table.
all right. Does any other member have any questions? Okay, thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
All right, thank you.
Joe Farkas. Is Joe here? Terry Begas. Is Terry here? And just in case I'm mispronouncing that last name, she's from Plymouth, so Terry from Plymouth. Nancy Tissio? Is that you? All right, great. After Nancy, I have John McGrath and Donna Ross. Welcome to the Senate Committee. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm from Macomb County, and I was a ballot challenger on Monday the 2nd at TCF, and on Tuesday, the election day, I wanted to work at the polls because I heard, things about the polls. So on Tuesday.
Can I interrupt you for just a
Yeah.
second? Can you talk a little louder
Oh,
for the
sure.
microphone? That'd be
get
great.
closer.
Thank you.
So Monday I worked at TCF, and I watched them, on Monday they were taking the ballots out of the outer envelope. And it went pretty smooth, I have to admit. There were a couple of things that concerned me, and I, addressed them. One was 80% of the ballots that were at my table 93 were closed with packaging tape. And I thought that was odd, 83%, like 80% of the ballots were closed with packaging tape. That seemed different to me. Another thing that I thought was like horrible is that whoever like marked the outside, the ballot number on the outside of the outer envelope, they wrote it in a light green crayon. And so you couldn't, 6 feet away, you couldn't see if that ballot number matched the ballot number that was marked on the outside of the envelope. And then, what I thought was odd was the people that were just taking the ballot out of, they were taking the ballot out of the inner sleeve, these 2 ladies, and they were turning it around so that the number would be on top. They'd take it out, they'd open it up, they'd look at it, fold it back up, put it in to make sure the number was on the top. But they had ink pens, and I thought, why did they have ink pens by where they're at? So I kind of brought a lawyer over, and we thought, why do you need an ink pen by where they were at? All their job was to turn the ballot over. So that day wasn't, that bad. Then the next day, I went to Henry Ford High School. Is that all right?
You have 1 minute left.
Oh, Henry Ford High
Sorry.
School. And when I was the only Republican in the gymnasium, there were 6 precincts. And after like about 2 hours, I realized they were giving out ballots to people that had an absentee ballot question mark, red question mark next to their name. And so I kind of like stopped the process, and we went around and everyone was giving out ballots to people that had that question mark. And we ended up calling the war room in Lansing, because I said, no, they have to call the clerk and have the ballot spoiled before they can issue him another ballot. And they didn't agree with me, so we got that straightened out, and that was true. They had to call the clerk. Well, the clerk wasn't answering. They weren't getting any answers. So I know they were just continuing to give people ballots that had, the question mark, because no one would answer at the clerk's office. And when I went to precinct 275, the girl, I said, what are you doing when they have the question mark? She goes, oh, I just write their names down. And she had a list of like 25 people. I go, no, that's not the process. And she goes, what do you mean? And it turned out she wasn't even a poll worker. She was supposed to be a Democratic poll challenger. But when she got to the building, she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't, obviously she wasn't trained well, because she didn't even
Okay.
know what her job was.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh.
But I mean, to me, people got 2 ballots.
Thank you. Senator Lucido.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Nancy. You mentioned lawyers. How many lawyers were there?
There was probably 5 Democratic lawyers.
5 Democratic lawyers. How many
No,
Republican
none.
lawyers?
There wasn't one until like 5 o'clock. I was there 6:30 in the morning. She didn't come till 5 in the evening.
What time did you get there?
6:30,
What time did you leave?
8:30. I finally left. None of them could, balance their
Did
books.
any of the lawyers or make statements regarding this hand truck, cart, dolly that had all these ballots in it?
No, that's at the TCF. I was at a high school.
Okay.
But the one lawyer said, well, he was going to take that list of 25 and he was going to spoil the ballots. I don't know.
All right, that gets me some idea. But there was no lawyers where you were, except Democratic lawyers? How'd you know there were Democratic
They
lawyers?
told me. I was the only Republican in the whole room.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you very much for
You're
your
welcome.
testimony. Did you submit things in writing?
I did, and a
Okay.
video
Okay.
affidavit.
Thank you. John McGrath. Is John here? And after John, Donna Ross, followed by Eugene Greenstein. Welcome to the Senate Oversight Committee, Mr. McGrath. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Chairman McBroom and committee members. My name is John McGrath. I'm a registered voter here in Michigan. On Wednesday, November 4th, I learned that tens of thousands of ballots had arrived at TCF Center from Wayne County, which was after the election deadline of 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 3rd. Surprised and concerned that so many ballots appeared after the election deadline, I felt compelled to drive to TCF Center to volunteer as a nonpartisan election challenger. I witnessed ballot after ballot being counted for unlisted voters. Unlisted voters are ballots not registered in either the electronic nor the supplemental paper-based absentee voter poll book. The unlisted voters had no dates of birth, in contrast to the registered voters. The poll workers continually, and they were being instructed to do so, I don't blame them for this, but they continually entered the default birth date of January 1st, 1900 into the computer system to process these votes. Since working at the TCF Center, I have read where some leaders of the Michigan legislature indicate that they have not been made aware of any information that would change the outcome of the election. I wish that were the case. Tens of thousands of ballots arriving after the election deadline provide a minimum of tens of thousands of reasons to investigate and audit these ballots. I've also read where some leaders of the Michigan legislature indicate that Michigan's certification process should be free from threats and intimidation. The problem is that Michigan's certification has not been free from threats and intimidation. I refer this committee, I refer the people, the people's representatives in Michigan to the affidavit submitted by Ms. Monica Palmer, chairperson of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, and by Mr. William Hartman,
1 minute.
member of the Board of Canvassers of Wayne County. And finally, if you read their affidavits, that is for Ms. Palmer and Mr. Hartman, it is clear that they did not certify Wayne County's results. And since they did not certify Wayne County's results, how can the Board of State Canvassers certify any results? It's a mess. It's a mess for the Michigan legislature. But it's time for the Michigan legislature to step up and step in. And because at this point, I don't see how you can send any electors to the Electoral College. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Do any members have questions? Thank you for your time today, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
You turn in written testimony?
I will.
Thank you.
You want me to bring it to you right now?
If you have it available, that is
Yes, I
very
will.
convenient.
Okay.
Next, I've been informed that Ms. Terry Begas is now here. Please come forward. After Terry, I have Donna Ross, followed by Eugene Greenstein, and I guess that's as far as I go. Thank you. Welcome to the committee.
Hi,
You have 3 minutes.
okay. After hearing how the method of voting that we were going to be doing this year, I decided to try to make a difference and volunteer I wanted to work at Cobo initially. And so I became certified as an independent poll challenger. And we take it seriously, and we went to this one woman's house to do a mock poll challenging, a mock, election voting process stuff, and learn as much as we could. And it was helpful, and when I was there, I witnessed a video of the workers, the poll workers from Detroit, Wayne County, and it was sickening how they were training them that we were the enemy, we were to be the enemy, they were to block the votes, or not block the votes, but block the view of what was going on, to keep us 6 feet away, taught to intimidate us. It was disgusting. I'm not sure if it was on YouTube or what it was, but it was sickening. That's not what we were taught. We weren't taught anything like that. We had rules to follow. We had regulations to follow. We had to wear lanyard around our neck to identify that we were a poll challenger. I was with an independent company, so it said poll challenger. So they knew who we were. But anyhow, I got cold feet and decided, because of what I saw on the training video, I anticipated problems at Cobo, and I was apprehensive. So I chose Dearborn for 2 days. I did Monday and Tuesday at Dearborn. They asked me Tuesday night if I got a call. They needed help at Cobo Wednesday. I was beat. I had worked long hours both days, and I said no. However, Wednesday morning, I got a call to action.
1 minute.
Pardon me? Yeah. Got a call to action Wednesday morning that they needed help. They were understaffed there, and about the treatment that was going on is what I have heard said today, is what I heard what was going on. And I said, BS, I'm going. So a friend of mine and I got in the car and we came down. When we came down to Cobo, we drove down, we went in, we walked in with a lawyer and some other people. There was no security guard. We parked on the roof of Cobo. And there was no security guard when we walked in. The other gal that went with me was being trained in the hallway. I was already certified, so I wanted to go back to the car to get my phone off the seat. So I went back up to the roof where I came in the door, and there was a security guard now there. Uh-oh. Do you want me to leave you hanging?
Well, you've written it down.
Can I
mean,
finish it? Can I
if
finish
it-
my sentence?
If you can finish in
Okay,
15
so there was
seconds
a
or so.
security guard there, and I had to have other people get my phone for me because I couldn't leave the building. What I didn't get was, there were 3 people that they said if us 3 people leave, there was a crowd of people that they couldn't get in that were volunteers. And they said, if we're leaving, there's 3 of us leaving, can 3 come in? He said, nope, and it was all supposedly due to COVID and overcrowding. Come on, we know how big TCF is. No, I don't buy that.
Thank you.
But anyhow, I was there when they boarded up the windows so we couldn't see in, and I missed going into the counting room just by a hair. They had called in some independent poll challengers, and I turned around, anyhow, they swooped them in there, and then there was nothing for hours. We went upstairs and there was nothing, no more people going in, but there was media going in, there were attorneys going in, but no poll challengers, no,
Thank you for the detailed account in your thing that you passed out to us.
No, that's it, because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't in the counting.
I said thank you for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I
Thank you.
thought you were asking for
No,
more.
no,
Okay, I should know. The
Do any
buzzer
members
went
have a
off.
question for Terry? No? Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank
All
you
right,
for coming.
thank you.
Next, I have Donna Ross. After Donna, Eugene Greenstein, followed by Sylvia Halpert. Welcome to the Senate Committee, ma'am. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Ronna Ross.
Oh.
I have spent my life saying, oh, no, it's Ronna like Donna, but, not Rhoda, not Rhonda, not
If it's any
Rhoda.
consolation to all of you today, my handwriting's not that great either. So, but I have a 2-letter name, so I get away with it. But please go ahead, Ronna.
Thank you, Senator.
You have 3 minutes starting now.
Okay. I want to demonstrate to you just how official the harassment was at TCF on November 4th. I got there at 1 p.m., having been told, we need Republican poll challengers. And I went running down, and I had been certified as such, but we couldn't get in. And so an hour or 2 later, I thought, well, maybe I'll try, I'll be an independent poll watcher. So I switched lanyards, and now I'm independent. And eventually I was able to get in, but not until 4 p.m. And I had gotten there at 1. When all these pizza boxes went up so we couldn't go in, there was just a mob of people waiting to be poll watchers. And a man came out and had a very big presence and very big man. And he said, please, I need room, everybody back. I'm the lawyer for the city of Detroit. So it's like, okay, and I have something to say. So he then introduced a man who told us that he was in charge of the poll watchers, monitoring them. And people say, well, and he said, and there are, every single Republican challenger is here. I was like, no, they're not. They're not at all. And he said, well, there are 130 whatever signed in, and none signed out. and people next to me protested. I went out for lunch. Nobody said sign out. And he said, well, people chose not to sign out. I'm telling you that there was no signage. There was no signage for sign out. Big sign for sign in. Turns out you were supposed to sign out at the same place, but there was no signage. And the exit was 50 feet away. So when you wanted to leave, your direction was away from the sign out. So just wanted you to know that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's helpful information on how the room was laid out. Any questions? No? Thank you. Next, Eugene Greenstein. After Mr. Greenstein, I have Sylvia Halpert and Dr. Linda Lee Tarver.
Thank you very much, Senators. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but since no one really said what I wanted to say, and I did file an affidavit with the Republican lawyers, so I have no idea whether that comes to you guys or not.
Well, you have your 3 minutes, so go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. My name is Eugene Greenstein. I'm from Farmington Hills. I was a poll chairman in Detroit on Tuesday, November the 3rd, and a GOP challenger on Wednesday at TCF, answering an emergency request for challengers. And my basic comment is there needs to be a forensic audit. Why do I think so? I observed that envelopes, which were scanned in some cases, would have a different ballot number than was on the envelope. I was at board 55 in TCF. The ballot number, though, was in the poll book, as was the number on the envelope. The situation would result in a challenge ballot. The situation should result in a provisional ballot, because there's no one knows who voted for anything, because they didn't match, excuse me. And other situations which I just couldn't follow would be processed through also where there was this mismatch. And so my question is, how is it that there's this lack of integrity between the envelope and the ballot, which results in a counted ballot, when on Tuesday, I knew who voted at the polls? This absentee ballot process is a total disaster in terms of accountability, opportunity for fraud, et cetera. And good people can want to do good things, and bad people can want to do bad things. And I think we've seen a lot of problems here because the voter and the ballot don't go together. And that's my comment. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Greenstein. Any questions from members? No. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Did you submit your testimony in writing, or? Oh, okay. Yeah, we can do that, so thank you. The email that we've been using for this committee is Senate Oversight Chair at senate.michigan.gov. I know that's a little bit of a mouthful, so, but if I have a spare card somewhere, I'd write it down. The next up, we have Sylvia Halpert, followed by Dr. Linda Lee Tarver, followed by Marilyn Fine. Ms. Halpert,
Yes,
welcome to the committee. Thank you.
thank you. I am a registered voter in Oakland County, and I volunteered at the TCF Center in Detroit. Our family immigrated from Canada. I love this country. And what I saw down in the TCF Center made me very sad and disappointed. There seemed to be a concerted effort to let us know that we were not welcome, very unfriendly and at times hostile. At one point, I witnessed a challenger walk up to a lady to look at the ballot. She turned aggressively, brandishing a long metal letter opener to the gentleman, and in a threatening manner pointed the sharp object towards his chest and demanded that he move back, move back. He backed up and she took a step forward towards him, still pointing the sharp object at his chest and repeating back up. She said it at least 4 times. Another time I was standing more than 6 feet away from a counting board table when a man forcefully demanded, "Get back, COVID, COVID, get back." It was impossible for us to see what he and anyone else was doing at the table. And clearly that was his goal. Several of us challengers watched quietly for over a long, long time for the military ballots. At one point, several police officers came in and stood between us and the ballots, a little over to the side, but a man came up and said we were to disperse. I said we were being respectful and standing more than 6 feet away. He said it has nothing to do with COVID. You are interfering with the process. We were standing quietly doing nothing, but we spread out in the aisles like good little sheep. We couldn't see, of course, from there. I watched workers take hours sorting military ballots into containers labeled with corresponding precinct numbers. In all our time there, I never saw those ballots being taken and processed. It was a long, long lag time, and during that time, the people at the counting board sat idly doing nothing. And I was wondering, why are they taking so long to get these to the table so they can be processed? And it occurred to me maybe they were wanting us to leave. So after a long wait, about 4:30 or so, it was starting to get dark. We left the building. That night at about 10:30, I received a call from a gentleman whose number I had gotten while I was there. He said, "Are you still in the building?" And I said, "No, I'm getting ready to go to bed." And he said, "Well, we've been following a truck and it just entered the TCF building. Can you watch for it?" And I said, "Well, I'll call somebody." And I did, and got one of the ladies who testified today and to look for it. When we came out, cardboard was being put up on the windows so that, to block the view from the group outside who wanted to come in and were refused admittance. When we exited the building, another large crowd was out front of the building complaining they were not allowed in and had been there for hours, some of them up on the roof, and there had been a man up there keeping them out. And we talked to some.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't give you
TV.
a 1-minute warning, so please go ahead and wrap
No,
up your comments.
we just talked to a couple of newspapers and TV news and went on home. But that's only a small portion of what happened.
Thank you. Do
Thank you.
you have other written for us?
Yes,
Thank you.
not today, but I will send it to you. Can you tell
Okay.
me that same address again that you
Yeah,
told?
it's Senate Oversight Chair at senate.michigan.gov.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? No, thank you very much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
Next, I have Dr. Linda Lee Tarver, followed by Marilyn Fine, followed by Michael Haynes. Hi, Dr. Tarver.
Hi, thank you,
Welcome to the
Senators.
committee.
Thank you so much. My name is Linda Lee Tarver. I'm a Michigan voter, former Michigan Civil Rights Commissioner, a retired state employee, and a Republican activist. I'm a public servant under 5 secretaries of state, including Richard Austin, Candace Miller, Terry Lynn Land, Ruth Johnson, and I was delighted to retire under the current Secretary of State. I have been under 7 years under Secretary of State Ruth Johnson. In that role, I was the Community Affairs Director and Election Integrity Liaison. I assisted in preparing cases for referral to Attorney General Bill Schuette to prosecute for voter fraud. Ballot harvesting in Detroit, Flint, and Pontiac has been going on for decades. It's a misdemeanor to give your ballot to anyone not allowed by law to receive it, and it's a felony to take that ballot. People have been prosecuted in Michigan over the years as a result. Ballot stuffing, ballot curing, and complete fraud in the issuance, handling, and processing of ballots has not been addressed, and no election after 2020 should be considered fair unless we get this right this year. The complete hate, disdain, and apathy for Republican poll challengers is but one way of how elections are stolen in Michigan. Before COVID-19, and I'm talking to the Democrat in the House, and in every election in the last 25 years, Republican poll challengers were removed by the police, especially in Pontiac. MCL 168.733 says, the election inspectors and other election officials on duty shall protect a challenger in the discharge of his or her duties. Shall protect is not an option. Shall protect. It is never done in the urban areas. Never, never, never in the urban areas. In the 34 years I've been working for the state of Michigan, and certainly not the 29 years I've been working at the Secretary of State. It also says in subsection 4, a person shall not threaten
One
or
minute.
intimidate a challenger while performing an activity allowed. You shall not threaten or intimidate. It is a misdemeanor for what they have done, these inspectors, to continue to intimidate and throw out Republican poll challengers. It has been going on too long. 71% of Detroit precincts, our largest city, cannot be recounted. As always expressed as minor clerical errors, these are not minor. There are touch points in the process for these ballots to be, and the accounting to be done, those ballots to be open. In order for this fraud to be corrected, we need a complete audit. You need to have optics on it. This has always been done in communities of color. It needs to stop. Enforce the laws and ensure, bring in independent inspectors. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Tarver. Any members have a question? Senator Tice?
Thank you, Dr. Tarver. I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate your testimony. Also very compelling. Do you have, when you speak about an audit and a complete audit, what would you see as the appropriate type of audit? Would it be a forensic audit? Would it be a hand recount of ballots? What would you like to see done?
71% of Detroit cannot be recounted, which means that the boxes that the ballots are in cannot be opened. 71% is egregious, and it happens in these communities of color. So if you cannot recount it because of a, quote, clerical error, according to Secretary Benson, these are not clerical errors. These ballots are hidden in. You can hide them in there until you're able to open them. There are processes that have been allowed so that when you cannot balance your precinct, you can go to a counting board or a board to evaluate them. At that time, those errors are supposed to be fixed, and they can open up the ballots. The only way to open up the ballots right now to get your ideas on it is for you to do a complete forensic audit that needs to be done to open up those ballots. Because a recount is only going to get you 71% of the ticker tape that says these are the numbers, and there are bad ballots inside. You cannot look at the ballots if you do a recount. You need an audit in order to do a forensic audit to look at those ballots. Some absentee ballots that were coming in were not even folded. How do you have a pristine, flat ballot without being folded if it was an absentee ballot? And therein lies some of the problems. And once it goes into the machine multiple times, you cannot open up the case. If you put the wrong number on the seal, you can't open it up. If you put in, it doesn't balance, you can't open it up. And so there's problems with what's going on. We need to open up those ballots for the integrity, because we cannot move forward in any further election.
Can I ask a follow-up? So I am curious, because I understand that a lot of them didn't balance. What is the appropriate process once you get done with the election and you've done the ballot count and you realize that they're not balancing? What would the appropriate process be right then?
The precinct inspectors or the precinct captain who is supposed to be trained are supposed to contact the clerk's office if there's any problem with balancing. You're supposed to know and have your hand on how many provisional ballots, how many spoiled ballots, where are the missing ballots, what's going on. You're supposed to take care of it at the precinct level and then close your precinct. But if some reason you're not able to, there's a counting board where you take your ballots to turn them in to say, I testify that I did this and I've got my paperwork, I've got my poll books, I've got the notes written down in the poll books or in our electronic poll books. And that counting board is supposed to say, you're not in balance. Let us open up that container and make sure those poll books are we can look at the ballots. We physically can look at them. But in these urban areas, they're lazy and they're not taking this, the civic right very seriously or their duties very seriously. They take an oath when they do as a precinct inspector. They are not taking it seriously and have not for years. And the apathy toward the official duties here has become egregious because once they decide not to balance that precinct, then it goes through and you have the hot mess that you had where you have these canvassers, board of canvassers for people that is supposed to amend that hot mess. Flint has never been able to balance. Never been able to balance, and there's touch points across where they have the ability to open that up, to do a quote, honest open of the ballot itself, the container itself. If you're not able to open that container up, which after it leaves the counting board, you're not able to do it unless you get a court order or an audit. And no one has been brave enough to do it. 71% of Detroit cannot be recounted. We have nothing. And when we did a recount before, we saw some of the most egregious things when we looked through and did recounts before in Detroit. There's some things in there that should never have been in there. And that is what I'm telling you about when you're able to open up those ballot boxes. But it is not going to be at the Detroit canvasser level and certainly not at the Michigan State Board of Canvasser level.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tice. Vice Chair Irwin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions for you
Sure.
that I'm going to ask you based on the fact that you've been around for a while, you've been an activist, you've been where you work for the Secretary of State's office, so that's why I'm going to ask you these things. I think my first question is, are you aware that there are audits done on past elections, and in any of your official or unofficial capacities, did you ever have the opportunity or cause to review those audits that looked into things like dead voters and all that kind of stuff
Yes.
that we've done in the past?
Yes.
Okay, and did you find that the answers to those questions were that, in fact, these were clerical errors in previous audits that have been done by the Legislative Auditor General and been before this committee in the recent years?
So I've worked with Chris Thomas for years, and I've submitted some illegal stuff that I felt was illegal to them to investigate, and they were investigated. How they remedied it was not according to what I felt was necessary. There have been clerical errors, if you call it clerical. The law concerning your ability to be a precinct inspector, a poll worker, is that you have to have a sufficient clerical acumen in order to perform the duties, which means you should be able to read and write and add and subtract. And you should be able to perform the duties without any inhibitions. We know that there are over 500 precincts in Detroit, and many of the people who will come and get trained, some of them will not show up. But the ones that do show up, they are not given sufficient training on how to legally perform the duties that they have. However, if they are told that the challenger is the enemy, this person standing behind you is the enemy, and they have not been told that the person behind you must be protected, you will not be able to address some of the oversight, laziness, ignorance of the law, ignorance of the process, and lack of training. And so one of the ways that ballots are the election fraud occurs is when you have workers who are not properly trained. And that's where we are finding is lack of training. They're in a hurry. They're not sure what to do. But those clerical errors are mixed with clerical errors, but a lot of them are considered fraud. I would have referred all of them to the Attorney General if it were me. But Chris Thomas and others decided not to. They tried to remedy those things as best they can, but unless you put the full faith into the law and start prosecuting people, we will continue to see what we've been seeing. 71% of Detroit cannot be recounted. And I would not want to run on a Detroit city nothing at all. I would not want to run in the city of Detroit knowing that there have been, quote, clerical errors, that some of them are illegal. There are ballot curing problems. We have seen people walk into the clerk's office in Detroit with a stack of 75 ballots. Janice Winfrey is standing next. Ballots. If you don't compare the signatures, you toss the signature out. You don't compare the signatures, you're supposed to. It's in the law. We are not following the law, and we are not following it in every election. And the larger the jurisdiction, which are people of color, people who look like me, the more fraud that can be inserted into stealing an election. And that is a problem, and we need to stop it.
Okay, I almost am.
The second question.
You've read the audits, you've seen them. We both read the audits.
They know me, so
Yeah, I know. I'm glad we both read the audits. I just
I'm
want to
very
keep putting it out
passionate.
there that, in fact,
Yes,
it is
thank you.
part of Michigan election law that we
Yes.
have audits, and those audits have been done in recent elections, and they'll be done after this one as well. And, you know, I just want to put that out there. And then also, you know, one of the things you
You're
said that
talking
I
about
really
a
agree with you.
post-election,
That's
yes,
right.
but
That's what the law says.
they're insufficient
I
for,
appreciate your
they're
position.
insufficient for what the purpose is. I'm asking for a forensic audit of the election itself, looking for the fraud and illegal votes.
Yes, and I'm wondering why the Trump campaign didn't want to do a recount, which would have been the normal process.
Why,
But
why
let
would
me
you
ask my second
recount
question.
71% of the votes cannot be recounted?
You know what, that's a problem. I want to agree with
I'm
you
just
on
telling
that.
you,
I'm trying
why
to build up
waste,
to agreeing with you.
why waste your money and time? It costs money to do a recount. Why waste your money when 71% of the votes that you need to look at physically cannot be even seen?
Okay.
That
And that builds up to my next
29%,
question.
I'm not paying $2 million or $4 million for 29% of the ballots that can be counted, because the rest of them cannot be counted.
That's one of the reasons why I voted against the changes to the recall law that made it so onerous and difficult for people who wanted to look into these issues.
Open up
However,
the ballots.
The
Yes, sir.
issue that you mentioned, that I just want to highlight for the committee, because I really agree with you on this, is that, you know, when you have a situation where there's a discrepancy at that precinct, those precincts should be recountable. And we need to find a way to make that so. And I think that what you're going to find here in Lansing is that there are a whole lot of Democrats who are going to agree with that. We want these ballots to be looked at. We want elections to be run in a safe and secure manner. But the problem is that this legislature has been controlled by Republicans since the 80s. The state Senate has been controlled by the Republicans since the 80s. And so my question to you is, after the 2016 election, when we saw the problems that we saw that you just hinted at, when we had agreement apparently between a lot of folks about the fact that these precincts should be recountable, why did we see no changes in the law to address any of these issues while we had a Republican governor, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate?
So I'd be happy to answer that question. That's a very simple one. We have sufficient laws on the books. So my brothers and sisters in the Republican GOP has done their due diligence to pass laws, make laws. The enforceability of the laws, however, because in Grand Traverse County, we're not having this problem. In certain counties, that Van Buren County, we're not having this hot mess problems that we have in Pontiac and in Flint and in Detroit. We don't have that. So if you want Republicans to pass more laws, why don't the Democrats in their cities enforce the doggone election laws so that that we can have fair and just elections? Because I just gave you the law. It's a felony for me to give my friend, next door neighbor, my ballot. It's a misdemeanor for me to give it to them, and it's a felony for them to turn it in. A felony. It is not enforced. And we have situations in the inner cities and these Democrat-controlled areas, because that's what we're talking about. Democrat-controlled areas cannot seem to balance their elections. And because they have been habitual violators of the inability to balance their election because of either ignorance, apathy, lack of leadership, or lack of caring about their election integrity, because if you add more laws to the books, you still have people who will not follow the law. And if you don't enforce the law, if you don't bring in Republicans to say, I am going to be a poll worker, if you need 5 Republicans in the building, make sure 5 workers are. Contact the Michigan Republican Party. Ask them for 5 people or 25 people or 200 people to work it. And then when the challengers come in, you protect them. You don't put them out. You don't call the police on them. You're supposed to protect them according to the law. If you follow the law in the urban Democratic controlled areas, then we would not be here today. I certainly wouldn't be here. But in 25 years that I've been monitoring elections, working with the Secretary of State, the last 8 doing election integrity, it's been a hot mess in the same Democrat-controlled areas. We don't need any more laws. We need to enforce the laws, and we need to open up the doggone ballot boxes.
But we are agreed that we need to change the laws on
Thank you.
recounting precincts. We do
Thank
agree
you.
that we need to change the law on recounting precincts, right?
Pardon me?
We should change the law on recounting precincts. That was the
We're
subject of my
not
question.
changing
I mean,
the
you went
laws
on a
for
nice political
recounting.
screed, but the
No,
question
no.
was about that specific law, allowing the recounting of imbalanced precincts.
No, we're not.
Let's change that law.
We're not trying to talk about recounting for imbalanced precinct. The balancing of the precinct can come at the counting board level. You think that the ballots come out and then all of a sudden it's given in and locked up in a box. It is not. Once it leaves the precinct, it goes to a counting board. They have the full authority to open up that ballot box because it's not balancing. If the seal is broken, if this is broken, they can reseal it at the counting board. There is a law with the counting board, and it's lazy in the inner cities of color, of people who look like me are not doing their job. And it needs to be done so that we can count 100% of the precincts instead of 29%. That's what needs to be done, is to make sure people are doing their job. You won't get that in an audit. What you will get in the current fake audits that we've been having and these fluff audits that we've had right now, you will get, well, these can't be recounted, so okay, so we can't do that. Here's what we can. You will get an audit of the 29% in Detroit that can be recounted. That's all you're going to get. Because we need to see the 71% of the fraud that has been locked up and will be destroyed after so many years. That's what we need to see.
Thank you,
I'll take
Senator.
any other questions.
Thank you, Senator Irwin. Senator Lucido.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Tarver. I got to tell you, I can't agree with you more. My whole problem is sitting in this chair today and leaving the Senate to go prosecute those crimes. Why was it when the Secretary of State, which you were there how many years?
I've been with the Secretary of State 29 years.
Almost 30 years. We've been in this room here over 6.5 hours, and the irony is, why was it when the Secretary of State, which you were there how many years?
I've been with the Secretary of State 29 years.
Almost 30 years. We've been in this room here over 6.5 hours, and the irony is, it's about the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
If the people are doing their jobs and the integrity of the vote is being respected, we wouldn't be in here today.
That's right.
2 is 71% can't be counted because
Of fraud or apathy or incompetence or clerical error or all of the above.
So we did some testimony, and the chairman was gracious enough to bring in 3 separate identifiable clerks from 3 separate identifiable counties. We asked these questions. How many of the ballots weren't signed that you didn't count? How many didn't look like signatures? I mean, we went into the deep dive because there's so many people that are so disenchanted. I don't want them to give up on the vote. I want them to remember that people sacrificed their lives for these amendments.
People who look like me died to get the right to vote. And I'm telling you, it is sacred.
And this discriminatory practices with women not getting the same right that men years ago. If it's a felony, it's a felony. If it's got to be prosecuted, it should be. Otherwise, the whole fabric of this entire nation falls apart. Discrepancies in the precincts, I get it, to my colleague up here. If you're going to have discrepancies, as if it's an easy fix. But I'm not hearing things from all over the state. I'm hearing them in segregated areas, and I think you are targeting these areas by saying people are either inept to do their job or they don't care about doing the job.
They have either been instructed not to care or have been allowed to, over the decades, not to be held accountable for the lack of accountability in the sacred vote. When you have gone so many years, people do not want to be called racist.
Right.
And if you're going into urban areas, in particular Detroit, you're hearing, why are you trying to disenfranchise the black vote?
Yeah.
You are racist, racist, racist.
I think this, and
But that has been the mantra, to allow for the 71% of no accountability when we have safeguards in place to ensure the balancing of the precinct and the seal that is not broken.
Dr. Tarver, those ballots are not of color. They
I
are,
agree.
They are one color.
That's right.
And they go in and they have parties on them. And the disrespect that I've heard throughout the process in Wayne County, in Detroit, only leads me to believe that even an audit process, and I got to ask this question, if 71% can't be counted,
Cannot.
the audit process to spend the kind of millions of dollars that it would take, and I really don't even know what CPA firm or what firm would do an audit. Have you, in your almost 30 years with the Secretary of State, could you identify a firm that specializes in election audits?
We'd have to bring in the federal government. The forensic audit that is needed is not going to be what has been done in order to open up those ballot boxes, which we need to.
So
that's where we need to open up the ballot boxes.
So if this has never been done, in the history of this country, I'm asking this question: does the legislature cumulatively or collaboratively work on a standard that would be the audit process? Because the next thing I see is that there's going to be debate over the audit process.
I don't see the legislative body, this body, passing any law to change anything, because must balance is not going to force Detroit to balance. Must balance is not going to force Inez Brown, the city clerk of Flint, to balance. Must balance. She has never been able to balance since she's been an election clerk there. So she's never balanced. Pontiac won't balance. There's a few other places, mostly urban areas, that will not balance. And they don't have to be as large as Detroit. They just won't balance. And if we don't have a mechanism in place, because once you pass a law that says we're going to do this, it is not going to be heeded, because then if you try to enforce it in the urban areas, you'll be considered a racist. You'll be considered disenfranchising the voters. You're just trying to check on us. Oh, black folks from Detroit need to have our whatever 71%. If you can't count it, you can't count it. And this Secretary of State will call it small clerical errors. And that is the mantra and talking points that should not be done. This is not a small clerical error. If there is fraud in those 71%, they need to be opened. Open the boxes. And that's going to be the new mantra, hashtag open the boxes.
Mr. Chair, I just have we're going to get down and drill down on this, but the reality is I don't think my colleagues on the opposite side of the aisle feel any differently. I think, to Senator Irwin's point, all of us want the integrity, respect, and trust Otherwise, we sitting here as lawmakers make no sense if the vote doesn't count and it doesn't accurately reflect what's going on. But
That was certainly the sentiment expressed at our committee, joint committee's first meetings by all members.
And at the end of the day, though, if we don't have the capability of resurrecting this wrong to accurately reflect what the vote is, how did it get so disenfranchised that we all are sitting here today hearing ballots brought in at 4 in the morning? I must have heard it 20 times, maybe more. Ballots that were going through and counted 8 times. Ballots that weren't signed going through, or the signature appeared, or the date, 1900.
Oh, yeah. The constitutional issue, and the constitutional issue that the president is arguing, which is a valid one, is that the equal protection under the law, it's required under the Constitution. And this is the president's argument. Me in Lansing, Michigan, if I sent in my absentee ballot, I didn't sign it, or I voted straight Republican and straight Democrat, my partisan section should be spoiled because they should not be curing it. And that is being cured. If I did not do what I needed to do, my ballot won't count. But if the same ballot was sent in Detroit, it is cured, which is fake, trying to interpret the results, and it is accepted if I don't sign it in Detroit. And that's where in Lansing, my ballot won't count. In Detroit, it will, and I should be able to have equal protection under the law. That is the constitutional amendment. That's the constitutional argument that our president is making. That is what you should be looking at. Are we treated fairly, regardless of where we live in Michigan? Will my vote count, regardless?
You used the word cure.
Cure.
And in the law,
Yes.
if you look at the legal definition of cure, what do you mean by the definition of cure?
So the curing of the ballots is if you're not able to, you've got an absentee ballot and it is kicked out. Because if you're sitting there, your ballot is kicked out if there's an overvote or if there's an undervote. You can, if there's an overvote, let's say it says vote for not more than 2 and you vote for 3. It's an overvote. It'll kick it back out if you're at the precinct.
And you have a chance to
And
cure
you
the
have a
ballot.
chance to cure your own ballot.
To redress the wrong
Correct.
on the ballot.
But if it's an absentee ballot,
Yes,
it is not supposed to be cured.
it is not supposed
No.
to be. It's supposed
Your
to be,
partisan
it's a spoiled
section,
ballot.
No, that section is spoiled. It's not countable. But the nonpartisan section that you did correctly is supposed to be counted.
So let's go by example. I vote straight ticket, Democratic.
And Republican.
Or I vote straight ticket, but when I get to the judges, choose not but one, because they're nonpartisan,
Right.
that part.
Right.
I choose 2. What happens to the ballot?
So your ballot counts, but if it's an absentee, that particular judge is not, that is not counted.
Nobody gets a vote.
Correct.
Okay. At the end of the day, I sat here as a legislator for over 6 years now. I sit in this chair and I wonder why the Secretary of State, if you have to request a ballot in a primary for Democrat or Republican, why they just can't make 2 ballots, all Republican, all Democrat, and send them out. So it can't get spoiled. You can't make a mistake. You can't go across the center line.
That is what occurs during the primary. So each group, Republicans and Democrats,
get it.
decide who's going to be on their ballot.
But if you don't want the ballot to be spoiled and not counted, and you want your vote to count.
You
and
can split your ticket in the
in
general.
the general, but I'm
Correct.
saying in the primary, do you see why, if I'm asking for a Democratic or Republican?
No, I would agree with you. I would
Because now
agree
it's
with
an
you.
impossibility to spoil that ballot.
That's only in the primary.
Primary, right. But that brings the next level of seekers to move to the general. And if the ballot was spoiled enough times, that seeker may not get the opportunity to serve.
I agree.
Okay, one more thing, and then I'm going to call it, because
I
I
hope
know
so.
it's been. No, but you know what? I'm tired of sitting here and trying to defend
I'm just giving you a hard time, Mr. Vice Chair.
Just go ahead, give him all the time he wants here.
71% not being able to be counted, which means
71% not being able to be
Which means, do
recounted.
we ever get the opportunity to find out?
We'll never know what is actually in that box, in the ballot box. You're not able to determine if those who are, those ballots are even duplicated in.
Do you
If you see
believe-
people sending in 3 or 4
got it.
times,
I
you don't
understand.
know.
So that statement of 71% has been stated out in the public. You are aware, being with the Secretary of State's office, 29 years, that's a long time. At the end of the day, does this give rise for the Attorney General to make an investigation and inquiry why 71% of that vote went that way?
Yes, I would believe that, again, if there is impropriety, that is where the Attorney General can investigate. I've prepared referrals to Bill Schuette for election crimes. We've had people in Michigan prosecuted for voting in Michigan and at their summer home in Florida. We've had people who were not here legally, non-citizens, vote in Michigan. We've had tons of people who voted twice, voted in person and absentee, and they're doing it in large clusters in these urban areas. It is a problem in the Democrat-controlled areas. It's not the problem with the laws on the books. It's a problem in the Democrat-controlled areas, and the laws need to be enforced. And if they cannot be enforced, they need to at least bring in the federal government to do an oversight and administer elections in these urban areas, which have been routinely unable to be balancing at the end of the day. We have too many touch points where those things can be balanced, but we have an apathy or just a corrupt, either apathy or a corrupt system. And for some reason, we have no appetite with this governor, Secretary of State, or the Attorney General to do anything about it at this point. This is too egregious and too much fraud that it should have been already investigated.
Well, we have seen prosecutions in election fraud, such as Southfield. There is selective prosecution in certain areas. At the end of the day, why wouldn't this state want the ability to make the inquiry? Is it because the case isn't delivered perfectly? I mean, these are credible people that are testifying here, including yourself.
It is COVID, before COVID, and even with COVID, COVID does not change the law. The law was not changed to accommodate COVID. The people who are the challengers are required and need to be protected in order to see the process. They can challenge the voter, they can challenge the precinct inspector, and they can challenge the entire process. That's what the law says, 168.733. That's what the law says. But we also have laws on the books that allow for people, the public, to view. And we also have laws on the books, but if they're not going to be enforced because it's an urban area, we have laws that says that people who should need assistance should be able to have assistance in voting. And some of these precincts did not have handicap and disability procedures there. Voting by mail disenfranchises a lot of people who cannot read and write, who need assistance, who need some assistance in the voting process with the machines that will read the ballot to them. And so this is the problem where we're not allowing we've used as an excuse COVID, but we are not allowing what needs to be done. Just like the children who are not in school with disabilities are not getting the special care that they need, neither did the voters here in Michigan. They did not get the special assistance that is required by law. These special assistance, even those people who are blind, people who need Braille, people who need special audio equipment, we have those at every precinct, or it should be at every precinct, so that the people of Michigan will have everything they need to vote, and that is not being done in the urban areas. And people don't want to touch Detroit, but it is not a sacred cow anymore. It is looking more like a cow, but not a sacred cow anymore.
I want to say thank you to the chairman. I've gone way over my time.
So have I. I'm
And you
sorry.
know what, though? These questions need to be answered
Okay.
because all of us are here because of this.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the
Thank you.
discussion.
Thank you.
I do want to say, I wish that we had the opportunity to bring you in on a time. I mean, the agenda today was really supposed to focus on TCF, but out of respect to you and your experience, have allowed us to
This-
go off. But we may need you to come back when we
Call
get
me anytime. You know
more
where I'm at.
into that specific subject matter. So
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Irwin?
Yeah, I'd just like to
I'm
make
sorry,
a,
did I miss your?
no, I'd just like to make a request that before our next hearing, I would just like to make a request that before our next hearing,
Members, Vice Chair Irwin would like to speak to us.
I'd just like to make a request that before our next hearing, we get some basic information about the facts that we could get in front of all the committee members. Because I think it was at our first hearing, maybe our second hearing, where one of the good representatives also mentioned this figure that 72% of the precincts can't be recounted. And, I received communication from the Secretary of State saying that's not accurate, it's actually 28%. And that's a pretty huge discrepancy. I brought it up at the time, but we've heard this over and over and over again. I mean, we're hearing the same, quips, the greatest hits right here, but that one we keep hearing over and over again, and it's just not true. Right, and so I think that unbalanced precincts and making sure that they're recountable is an important thing, and I think that we should, take a look at this. But I just want to point out that at least the information that I've got, and maybe that's wrong, is that it's actually the opposite, and I want to make sure we're dealing in accurate information.
Mr. Vice Chair, thank you for bringing that up, and I pledge to you that by our next meeting, I'll have some answers or persons who can give us that answers for the meeting. So thank you for bringing that up.
Senator?
Yes.
It's
Senator Tice.
28% of the in-person were recountable, or were not recountable, and 71% of the absentee were not recountable, is my understanding.
I will strive to
And that
have.
distinction is super important, because when you say that 71 or 72% of them are not recountable, that obscures some key facts, and it also obscures the fact that there are fewer absentee count boards, a smaller denominator, which is affecting that percentage as well. But, yeah, I just want the facts.
I will work to get us those facts for our next hearing. Thank you. We have a few cards left. We are nearing the end. Are you Ms. Fine?
I am Ms. Fine, and
Thank you.
I'm here to nominate Linda Lee Tarver as next Secretary of State. And
So hold on, please. Hold on. Let's get this done. Thank you. I know
I
it's
was
getting late.
serious.
Thank you. I have Ms. Fine, and then on deck, Mr. Haynes, followed by Patty Kamagata, and then Eddie Kabasinski. So if you're on deck, please be ready. Go ahead, Ms. Fine, you have 3 minutes.
Thanks. I'm from Ingham County. I'm here today not to talk about Covo, but I want to give you something that's along the lines of what Dr. Tarver talked about, and that's
Covo?
I was not.
Can I ask you to delay this to another time or to submit in writing? Because I'm
It'll
supposed,
take 1 second.
I know, but I've already disqualified other people who weren't
Well,
at
then I would be
Covo.
disenfranchised, wouldn't I?
No, I give you time to report in another time or in another way.
It's just one thing. Yeah, I will. I'll give it to you. But it's just one thing, and that is Michigan Law 168.765, and that has to do with the privacy envelopes. I spoke to Ingham County, Meridian Township, and Clerk Barb Bybram, and was told that we didn't need privacy envelopes. We were told by the Michigan Election Commission that we didn't need them because there were municipalities who didn't have the money to buy them or print them. It's bunk, folks. You need to look at every aspect of what isn't being enforced. I sat in Meridian Township and saw people's ballots. They said, can I put this in? I don't have the brown envelope. Oh, yeah, we'll take that. Subsequent to my affidavit of facts, I also spoke with Lansing City Clerk Chris Swope. I saw him at a function. And he said, oh, yeah, we accept those all the time. So I'm just asking that you look at that.
Thank you.
Check out the COVID, and I'll give you this. But thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Perfect. Michael Haynes. I hope I'm reading your name correctly. I thought at one point it was Hayes, or,
No, it's not. I will stand corrected. My name is Michael Hayes, Hayes.
Okay, thank you.
If you're from the east side of the state, just like the street, right, Pete?
You got it. Hayes Road.
after Michael, it's Patty Kamagata, and then Eddie Kabasinski. You have 3 minutes, sir, please.
Okay. I don't know how much I could add that I haven't heard already that you guys have probably grown stale of, because I think you heard the same thing from a lot of people. I don't have much to offer, and the reason why I say that, I wasn't able to get into the ballot room for very long before I was actually forcibly removed. That's the only thing I have to just add to what's already been added at TCF on the morning of the 4th, okay? But I was there until 8:30, almost 9 o'clock PM on the 4th. But I will tell you a few things if you want to hear it, and more as a judgment and add maybe to some of your thoughts, I will add. But as far as seeing fraud itself, I didn't see fraud. But I don't think I need any more examples that a dog wags its tail than what I witnessed in that day. A dog wags its tail. That means he's happy. Something happened there. You don't go into the amount of disclosure that what I witnessed in that whole day of my time, voluntarily, to know a dog wags its tail. So if that isn't a part of your discussion, that's fine. You have enough facts, there's been enough people. I was with the people in there. I seen the films that they recorded, 3:20 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, just like you have. So I won't bore you with those facts. But I'll tell you what, I'm a lifelong resident of Michigan. I got 50-some years of experience here. I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. I seen its day come and go. Right now, the pride level of the city of Detroit and Wayne County was at its highest that I've seen in a very long time. Some of you up there are old enough to know what I'm talking about. Some of them you're not. I guess I'll just have to ask you to take my word for it. Okay? I think we all heard the saying, taking one step forward and 2 steps back. That's almost acceptable. It is. But what I witnessed in the day of November 4th, 2020 in Wayne County, pretty much Detroit did not take 2 steps back. It took 17 steps back. It was disgusting, sickening, nauseating, what I witnessed. Outside factors who had come in, and these are people that didn't take any part in trying to bring the city back to where it was, the greatest city in the world at one time. Nothing. All they did is they came in and tried to diminish it again.
30 seconds, sir.
I will add, the leadership of this state did again, the only thing overwhelmingly discussing TCF was one comment. A divisional comment. It was racist. There was nothing racist there. There was only one race that I witnessed at TCF. That was a human race. That's all I need to add. I mean, I don't know if that is 1 minute or not.
Thank you.
So I don't know how much I can add to you. But guys, if you need more examples that a spade is a spade is a spade, I guess I might as well just start changing my zip code.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Any questions for Mr. Hayes? Thank you, sir. Thanks for your patience all day.
Thank you.
Patty Kamagata? Yes. Oh, it says you weren't at TCF. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you, Patty. Eddie Kabasinski. After him, Gordon Pennington, and then Angelique Johnson. Mr. Kabasinski?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good morning. Or afternoon. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name is Eddie Kabasinski. I am the only conservative on the Warren City Council. I represent District 5, which is the South Central Warren area. I worked as a poll challenger and was trained by Caitlin Vire and Macomb Trump Victory to work the primary and also on the day of the election. I worked at the Warren Schools Administration building, and I seen a lot of fraud, a lot of inconsistencies take place at that particular precinct. I was working at that precinct, which was sections 53 and 55. And I seen multiple inconsistencies. I reported these to the Macomb County Republican Party as well as Macomb Trump Victory. And, you know, I had the lawyers contacted, and nothing took place as far as remedying the situation. Then the very next day, after we had gotten done with the reception party at Mr. B's in Macomb County that evening, Mark Fortin, our chairman of the Macomb County Republican Party, a little bit shortly after 1 a.m. in the morning on 4 November, read the results, and we were waiting for the results to come in on congressional candidate Charles Langworthy, and for it to go over 50%. Then Mark Fortin got the results, and every candidate in Macomb County, with the exception of Macomb County Commissioner seat number 3, which is Nicole Kleinfelter, nobody ran against her. The individual that was running against her dropped out because he didn't have any money. But every Republican won. And then shortly after 3 o'clock in the morning, all the votes changed. There was this ballot done.
1 minute left.
So after I had gotten contacted by the Macomb County Republican Party, a mass text message was sent out. I did go to the TCF Center at Cobo Hall in Detroit, as well as Rob Cordes with the Trump Unity Bridge was down there. And we were trying to get in. I went to go and get one of the, I had showed my poll challenger identification from the previous day. And I said I was already trained as a poll challenger. I was waiting for with the rest of the group to get in. They had these people with hoodies on that were there forcing out the 2 poll challengers that were left inside of TCF, physically pushed them out the doors, and then had Detroit police block the doors and told us that we could no longer be there. This is at the time when we're knocking on the door and trying to get in. They put up the pizza boxes up on the windows, and we were not allowed in. Shortly after that, I got out of the TCF Center and seen Rob and the Trump Unity Bridge being impounded. I talked to one of the officers, the police officers who was there, and he said that the mayor Mayor Duggan basically had told them, not through James Craig, but to start arresting and detaining any Trump supporters that were down there in Detroit, that we were not allowed to be there.
Thank you. Thank you. Any additional questions? Is there any backing up evidence that Mayor Duggan said or did such a thing?
Well, I'm going by my word. I am honorably discharged from the United States Army.
But somebody told you
yes,
that was what was said. So I'm just
yes, this is coming from a Detroit police officer that I had spoke to. I wanted to find out what was going on. I did identify to him that I was a councilman and retired military law enforcement. I would like to find out what was exactly going on, because I did not want to be involved in a situation that would get any members from Macomb Trump Victory or Macomb County Republican Party in any further trouble after we seen Mr. Cordes being arrested and the Trump Unity Bridge being impounded.
Okay.
So that was my concern, was for the safety and the security of all of us that would be down there from Macomb County.
Thank you. I just wanted to know what the source was.
It was
for
a
that.
Detroit police officer, one of the Detroit police officers that wears the white traffic caps that is assigned specifically down to Detroit when you have events down there.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you for taking the time and for waiting so long. I appreciate your patience.
Yes, sir.
Next, I have Gordon Pennington. After Mr. Pennington, I have Angelique Johnson, and then we have the few cards from folks who didn't come when I first called. Kurt Hausauer would be up then. Mr. Pennington,
Thank you,
welcome.
Mr. Chairman.
You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a long day, and I think more details may not be as important as some summary observations. I was at the TCF Cobo Hall Center on both Tuesday, November 3rd, for almost 14 hours, a little more than 14 hours, and again Wednesday, November 4th, for nearly 12 hours. During that time, I witnessed in summary many of the things that have been detailed by those who have given eyewitness testimony here today. That eyewitness testimony, I would submit to you, qualifies as evidence. That evidence has to be adjudicated and looked at in the overall scope of what it is that this committee will eventually do in determining how deeply you'll investigate or look at some of the evidence that's been presented here. What I saw in summary as a person from the business community, I've seen many systems at work, and I work on strategy, and I work in a number of areas where you look at the whole end-to-end picture of how systems work. I would submit to you that this system could be fixed, and it wouldn't take much, but it would take a very assiduous level of detailed observation. One, the very provenance of the ballots themselves. The ballots themselves, if you were to send something, if you were to send me a gift from Amazon, you would and I would both probably have, through the UPS, FedEx, or whatever delivery system, a greater level of confidence in sending me a piece of candy than you would the ballot, which has been described by many people here today as a sacred privilege, a sacred duty, a sacred responsibility. I think we'd all agree with that. But what I observed at Cobo Hall was essentially, on the surface, if you didn't look deeply, you could see teams that were working together. They were rallied together by the supervisors at various periods. And what I observed there was essentially an attempt to create some esprit de corps there. And I would submit to you further that many of the people working there just wanted to do their jobs. What I haven't heard brought up here today was how they were either incentivized or remunerated or both. I'm told, and I have not been able to verify this for the Detroit Department of Elections yet, that most of these people are typically paid $250 per shift. Maybe you can verify that. I was told, however, at this election cycle, they're paid $600 per shift. It's typically an 8 to 10 or 12-hour shift, day shift and night shift, and that supervisors were paid $700. Why would Detroit be selected? And I'm told that one other Michigan city was selected for an enhancement of remuneration. That's interesting, to say the least. But I do believe that today, as we sit here, half the people in this constitutional republic, this great nation, feel disenfranchised and defrauded of this most sacred act of good faith in acting to sustain our democracy. Either way this goes, 1/2 of the populace of this country is going to feel disenfranchised and defrauded. I think it's up to this body and other bodies like yours to have the will and determination to go deeper in at least looking at a standard, a modicum of best practices. And I think this could be easily done. I will submit my recommendations, which would include camera systems, which would be privately held. They would not disclose the nature of the vote. We all saw the ballots, but we're not disclosing which way people individually voted. That's a sacred trust. But secondly, I think you could also have a much better degree of sorting the provenance, just like I've said earlier. If you were to mail something to someone using one of the standard carriers today, you'd have more confidence in that than you would in your own ballot. That is an outrage, and that's something that is addressable.
Thank you. You have written down the suggestions?
I'm going to
that you
send you these suggestions, Senator
Great.
McBroom, and I thank you for taking the time, but I challenge you to have the will, all of you, and I think this is a very, I think this is an equitable charge. I think across both parties, there's an equal interest in adjudicating this fairly. Nobody wants to see people feel that they've been disenfranchised and defrauded in this country today. And I believe we can do better. I believe we're not even close. If you were to bring a group of business people in, graduate students from a major university could hack this system easily. That was the thing that stood out to me most. This system is easily compromised, and it shouldn't be. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. After 7 hours of hearing testimony today, I think it was worth the hearing.
Well, thank you for your patience. Do any members have any questions before Mr. Pennington goes? Thank
I
you.
just want to
Senator.
thank you for being patient, doing what you just did. There's not many that do this. Look at this today. But more importantly, those recommendations as through your eyes are different than from our eyes.
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Senator Lucido, I am like, others have said this before, I've taken my liberty for granted. I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed. I've never fought in a foreign war. I'm not a veteran, but people have given everything for us to have this privilege. It is certainly, I know people have said these are fatiguing meetings, they're long days. No, they're not. This is worth it. Every minute of this is worth it. And I commit to you and to this committee to follow up and offer you suggestions that I think will be seen as equitable to either party. But this isn't over yet. I would submit to you and the American people that we have a constitutional process under law by which the media does not determine who our elected officials will be absent going through the process that is necessary. It's painful. It's gone on longer than it should. But we can do better. We must, and we must adjudicate this in a way that satisfies the demand of the American people that they trust, but we must verify.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
inspiration. Thank you.
Is Angelique Johnson here? Welcome, Ms. Johnson. Is it Angelique or Angelique? Okay. I've only ever seen it spelled with a Q before,
I
so
know, I
forgive
see,
me.
just like in the Bible.
After Ms. Johnson, I have Kurt Hauschauer and Linda Brandis. Please, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. My name is Angelique Johnson. I'm a registered poll challenger and voter in Michigan. I was at the TCF Hall on November the 4th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I was called down to come and help out. I was told there wasn't enough representation for our side down there. And so I got up and went on down. I was credentialed and got in. And when I was in, the first thing that I saw after I was told what to do and what to look for, I worked at a table, the very first table, I saw a discrepancy. And at that time, I didn't have no one near me to talk to about it. I was supposed to go to the challenger at the table or the person that was leading the table, but I was still asking questions, and because that person wasn't near me, because we didn't have enough representation, I had 4 tables to observe, you know. I observed the young lady take the ballot out, pass it to the next lady. She scanned it in as I was supposed to stand by the machine, the video monitor to watch that process. And when she scanned it in, it wouldn't go. So then she tried again, or something happened, and she got her supervisor next to her, and the lady got up and went to another table and got one of the people in the shirts that was the supervisor. And she came back and told the young lady something, and the lady looked down in her book, and as I tried to walk over there to see, they told me to go back because I wasn't allowed to come that close to them, but to stand on the end where the monitor was. I would see everything there. And I could see her look in the book for the name that was on the screen. And I noticed that she found the name, and she said, oh, or something like that. It was a discrepancy with this one, and they should have put that one out, and it's here too, so it seemed like it was 2. I don't know, because I wasn't as close, so I'm just telling you what I heard. And the young lady said, well, send it through anyway. That's what she was told to do. So I didn't know if that's something I should have challenged, and I should have, but I didn't because I was still learning the process. And when I went to find my supervisor, he said it was too late to challenge it then. So that was one of the things that I did witness. I witnessed as I stayed there for a while and left out to go to lunch because our room was upstairs, and came back. It was a crowd of people there by that time. And when a crowd of people was there at that time, they wouldn't let them in. But I got in because I was already credentialed, so I just kind of slid around to the side and went back in. And then I noticed a guy said, everybody get out. So everybody had to leave. They put things, cardboard over the windows, and a couple of cops were there. So I noticed that. And I also saw a lawyer also being put out. I looked up and noticed people were cheering, and the lawyer was being put out, and they turned around and asked him, what are you leaving for? And he said, because I asked him what's the count in here, because we had got information where they couldn't let anyone else in. That was on our side to help. And I'm thinking, well, I want to leave, so, you know what, if I leave, can they, like, switch us out? And they's like, if you leave, you can't come back, and if you leave, they're not switching people out. So, you know, I left by 6 o'clock, and that's the things that I saw. All I could do is testify to what I saw and what I witnessed that day.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Any questions from members? Yeah, Senator Tice, go ahead. You don't have to apologize.
When they said everybody leave, they didn't mean everybody. They meant some people, right? There were still people who were left in there. They weren't clearing the room.
When they said everybody leave, those were the people who had come to help relieve the workers who had been there the night before and into the next day. Those were the people who went upstairs where I were to get their credentials and everything, because you go upstairs, get trained, get your credentials, come downstairs and sign in the book. So it was a lot of them at the door. I got pictures. And those are the ones they wouldn't let in. They had some words. I came in and there was confusion going on right then and there. And all the TV cameras were taking videos of everything that was going on, because they really were yelling at each other. And they was like, we got the right to be in here. And the guy said, no, everybody leave. And that's all of the people who were at the front, who tried to get in to relieve the workers who were already there. Because I was told it was only 50 of us there. And I counted over 100 tables. And if it's supposed to be one Republican, one Democrat at each table to a poll challenge, then that's why I had 4 tables to watch, you know.
So you were there at a pretty regular time, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on November 4th, and you said you were told there were only 50 Republicans there at the time.
Yeah, I didn't count, but that's what I was told when I got the phone call to come in.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you all, and may God bless you guys and bless this process.
The only cards I have remaining are people who were already called, and so they may or may not be here. Is Kurt Hausauer here? Is Linda Brandis here? Austin Kreutz. And Joe Farkas. And Maria Menzel-Brown. Sergeants, are there anybody coming? All right. Members, I really appreciate your attentiveness to everyone today, to the members of the public who wanted to testify. I'm very proud of our work that we've got all the way through all of the cards, which I was not sure we would do. I would like to, I believe I'd like to have this committee, if you feel it's all right, I'll send a formal letter from us to Mr. Harkins and ask him to come in. I think he could give us some of the answers that we discussed earlier. Anybody have anything to say about that, feelings on that?
I think that's a good idea.
Did I say the right name? Thomas. I'm sorry, Chris Thomas.
I think all of the information that was put together is imperative that we share that information with the people that are doing their jobs. I think our colleagues, both sides of the aisles, would agree that the information is necessary for improving the process, if not perfecting what we've learned we can do as far as legislators.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lucido. All right, seeing no further business before the committee, Vice Chair Lucido moves to adjourn. Hearing no objection, we're adjourned.
All right, there you have it. Wraps up the third session here in Lansing, Michigan. Wow, we started this thing at around, my goodness, it seemed like 2 days ago we started this thing, but
actually 10 a.m.
10 a.m. There you go. So lasting well into about 7 hours. But we heard a lot of testimony here, a lot of eyewitnesses, a lot of witnesses to alleged voter fraud here in the state of Michigan. So we've been here for 7 hours. What's some takeaways for you guys?
Well, I'm losing stuff out of my pockets as we speak. There is so much today packed into what the people were saying who are bringing this alleged voter fraud before the Oversight Committee here at the Michigan Senate. A lot of the stories line up when it comes to the headquarters of where they were counting these ballots and the tabulations of the machines and the tabulations of the ballots and the hardwiring when it came to the machines with the Ethernet plugs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was not one story that didn't have one similar component. And it's kind of funny how you see it in that, and a lot of these people are all from the same county. You see it in that one part of the county, significant alleged voter
Wayne
fraud
County,
in Wayne County.
Detroit area.
There seems to be expansive voter fraud in that area, and all the stories line up. So, all these people, let's put it this way, all these people didn't have time to sit together and come fabricate a story.
Yeah.
This is all based on eyewitness accounts and sworn testimony, and that's what they brought here today, and it all lines up.
And Lilith, we heard the word earlier, evidence. This is evidence that's brought upon us, confirmed evidence of this happening, and now it's time for the courts, it's for the people to rule accordingly to the evidence presented to everyone here.
Yeah, I appreciated one of the last witnesses. She said she's been working with the Secretary of State for, 25 or 28 years? A very long time. And the panel was actually asking her a lot of follow-up questions, which I found very interesting, that they are showing, some sort of interest and compassion in what's going on, and she made very clear that it's in these Democrat-run cities and Democrat-run districts where voter fraud is taking place. And she said in the last 8 years specifically, she has noticed that it's been an absolute disaster with the elections, and she said herself, in the inner cities, in communities where people who look like me live there, in black communities, inner city urban communities, this is prominent and we need to fix it. So I really admired her passion and drive to put an end to this.
Yeah, a lot of passion today, obviously. Tomorrow, a little early preview, we'll be back here in Lansing to cover Rudy Giuliani is speaking over at the House tomorrow.
Yes.
So unfortunately, he wasn't here today. We thought maybe we might hear from him via phone call. That didn't happen, but we will hear from him tomorrow in the House, and perhaps laying out more of a case that we've seen before us.
Yes, absolutely. I heard it today. I think you were there when I heard it. Eyewitness testimony has been enough to put people in jail for life.
Good point.
So
Good point.
why doesn't that matter now? Why doesn't the eyewitness testimony matter now? Because it's true. It's based on truth, and it has the ability to make a change, and they're scared.
Absolutely. Okay, we want to also thank our partner for the day, and of course that is our good friend Mike Lindell with MyPillow, mypillow.com. As you know, we are viewer supported, and alongside patriots like Mike Lindell himself, that provides us the means to do exactly what we're doing right now. So with the holidays coming up, there's not a better time than right now to go to mypillow.com. That's mypillow.com, and shop for, you got the Giza sheets, you got the dog bed, you got the pillows. And right now, go into the promo code RSBN at checkout. RSBN, put that promo code in there, and you're going to receive up to 66% off.
How much?
66% off. Wow. That is confirmed right here. Up to 66% off on these products. And so go in there and shop away right now as we get ready for the holiday season. Don't forget to use that promo code RSBN. And of course, some of the profits of your sales from there go right here to Right Side Broadcasting, and allows us to do what we've done today for 9+ hours, and what we'll do tomorrow, what we've done in Atlanta, what we've done in Pennsylvania, what we've done all across this country the last year or so on this campaign trail. We are in it to fight and protect conservatism values here in this country and uphold the elections. And we've said this before, which way it goes, Philip, we just want a legit
Fair election,
and that's
with
all we
legal
know.
votes.
Legal votes count.
Legal votes.
There you go. As a reminder as well, follow us on all across the platforms at Right Side Broadcasting on Facebook. Of course, we're on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Follow us across there. I want to bring Lila in real quickly because we're going to give our social medias, because we've been actively posting up throughout the day of the sights and sounds that we hear here. And we've heard some compelling stuff, and we've got some video we're going to post up later. But Philip, why don't we go ahead and give them your social media handles?
Of course, yeah. You can go ahead and follow me on all my social medias at Philip Turino. It's Philip with one L, and then my last name is spelled Tirino. That's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Parler, you name it. I'm on there. It's all the same across the board, so keep it really simple.
Okay, Lilith?
You can follow me on Instagram, Teachers for Trump, where I also expose the public education system.
There you go. And you can follow me across the board as well at Brian Glenn TV. All right, that wraps it up here in Lansing. We'll see you back here tomorrow. One last time, goodbye. God bless. We'll see you again.
We're not just any news network. We show the crowd. We show the energy. We show the enthusiasm. We interview people. We show the smiles on everyone's faces as they fill into one of these venues to support their president, to support their values, their beliefs, their flag, their country.